Welcome to you all. This is the Ann Arbor Human Rights Commission, and we're glad to have you.
7 p.m.
Huh?
You can call the meeting to order at 7 p.m.
I call the meeting to order at 7 p.m.
We're going to do a roll call.
Let's start with the roll call.
Okay. Just 1 second. Chair Stanball,
Here?
Commissioner Winkler,
Here.
Commissioner Meadows,
Here.
Commissioner Cohen, Commissioner Garber,
Here.
Commissioner Bond,
Here.
Commissioner Pitzmeyer, Councilmember Gadzi Etwin,
Here.
Councilmember Song,
Here.
Commissioner Jackson. Okay, we have a quorum.
Do you have the sign?
Yes.
You can add your name to it. Go ahead.
Please add your name and bring it back. Yes. Meeting's been called to order, and we're going to start with public comment. Let me say a few words about public comment. We don't usually have it. We don't usually have this many people, and it's kind of nice to see everybody. We have about,
Once you finish signing.
once he finishes, I'll find out. We have about, I don't know, 15 maybe, people who would like to speak today. That's an awful lot for us, and that's very good, but we want to hear. We know what you're here for. It's important. We want to listen carefully. We want to really understand what you want to say. We're going to give you 3 minutes. We're going to allow for all the people who are signed up. If there's anybody else who has not signed up who wants to speak, do it now. We'll call people in the order of the sign up.
Okay, we're going to have to wait until he brings it back because we can't start.
Do I?
Nope, we have to, he starts again, so we have to wait.
Okay.
I'll grab it.
Yeah.
Yep, we're just waiting.
But while we're waiting, let me just talk to you for a minute about what we want to do here. 3 minutes is not an awful long time. We understand that, but it's a good start. And if you think about what you want to say and make sure that in that 3 minutes you have at least the kernel of it, that will be very helpful. I put a business card on everybody's seat. Did you all see it?
Yes.
Good. Looking before you sit down is a good idea. That business card is to let you know where you can find us. If there's more you think we need to know, send it to the address. If you want to know more about the Human Rights Commission, the website is on that business card. If you have a complaint about discrimination, human rights complaint, please go to the website. You can sign up there. It tells you how to file a complaint. You can see the ordinance to see what ordinance might be violated. We're here to help. We want to talk to you. We want to help you. If you have, we're asking for emails from the people who are speaking today, because if we have any questions, we might want to try to contact you and talk and follow up. We're going to try something different today. I don't know that this has been done recently or maybe anywhere. We're going to try to listen. We've got a very serious situation here. We want to know what you're thinking, what you know, what we should know, and we want everybody to hear it and think about it. So we're going to we've got an awful lot of things to do in an hour and a half or whenever, as long as this takes. We'll do it as long as it takes. We're not going to respond. We're going to listen, we're going to take notes, and if we have questions, instead of interrupting it now, we're going to ask. We have email, and we can ask. If you have questions, you can ask us to email the person. We ask you not to clap, not to just listen to other people. Just find out what we're talking about, what the sides are, what the issues are. We're depending on you to tell us. What else did I forget?
I don't think you forgot anything, so I think you can start.
I think we can start. Did we?
It's right there.
You have the sign-up sheet? So we've got, I'm going to call the name. Our intrepid office administrator, Kennedy, is going to be timing us. She will give you a 30-second warning. Please honor the time. It'll help everybody and make everybody feel like they're being heard and respected.
Chair Stamba,
Yes.
can you share who we are and who you are? I don't know if folks missed that
Thank you. I didn't make.
I mean, they might assume you're the mayor.
I'm not the mayor. Thank goodness. This is the Human Rights Commission. We're made up of 9 people who were tapped or volunteered to be on this commission. We're approved by the mayor and the city council. But we are volunteers. We do not get paid. We have lives and full-time jobs often. We don't have a big staff. We have intrepid Miss Cummings here, and that's wonderful. And we're not full-time. However, we are dedicated and really a fine team. And we can't do it a lot, but we know who can, often. We'll try. But let's see how much we can get together and how much, does that help? Oh, and our main, I should say this, our main reason for being is the non-discrimination ordinance, which is on our website. It protects people from discrimination for a whole list of things, but including this list of things that are considered protected classes. Thank you. I don't speak in public often. I'm sorry, I get nervous. But it includes race, ethnicity, country of origin, political beliefs, gender, but political beliefs also. And when somebody in Ann Arbor feels like they have been discriminated against in Ann Arbor, we can get a complaint and we can mediate it. We can look at it. We can find out what is the best way to protect the person who feels like they've been discriminated and act on it. Does that help?
Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Okay.
Okay,
Let's
so
do it.
let us start. And please excuse the way I pronounce your name. Rima Hassoul, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Ward 5, Rima Hassouni. I call upon this Human Rights Commission and City Council to pass a resolution demanding an unconditional ceasefire in Gaza and to create a task force investigating the escalation of harassment and hostile climate for Palestinians and allies. City Council has stonewalled and failed constituents and residents clamoring for a ceasefire resolution. It has remained silent and hence complicit in Israel's genocide. Its recalcitrance has encouraged intimidation, harassment, and aggression at the hands of private actors and public servants. One Palestinian student was called a terrorist by his AAPS counselor. A middle school teacher has for weeks suffered a hostile work environment, and protesters at Ann Arbor have been surveilled, harassed, assaulted, and arrested by city police, constituting a violation of their rights of assembly and speech. How can Israel's war of genocide, the bloodlusty murder of more than 18,000 Palestinians, including over 7,000 children, and the annihilation of institutions and infrastructures, how can all this be defensible? The death certificates of newborns have been issued before their birth certificates. Fathers have collected the blown-off limbs of their children and carried them in garbage bags in order to bury them in one last act of parental love and dignity. No Human Rights Commission and City Council abiding by the laws and principles of the universality of human rights can justify this inaction and silence as witnesses to these horrors. What fiendish number of dead will finally activate your consciences, soften your hearts, and galvanize you into action? Or, to echo the US colonial settler policy towards indigenous peoples, for you too is a good Palestinian a dead Palestinian? If you refuse to lead the way, then at least trail the cities of Detroit and Ypsi, the United Auto Workers, the Chicago Teachers Union, the California Nurses Association, Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, and at last, the UN General Assembly.
30 seconds.
Do not make a mockery of the principles of human rights universality. Do not betray our faith in our elected officials. Be better late than never. This Human Rights Commission and City Council must call for an immediate ceasefire, delivery of humanitarian aid, release of all hostages and prisoners, and an end to this genocide. And this commission must also immediately authorize a task force to investigate the mounting anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab backlash in our city and community. Thank you.
The next person is Edward Traeger.
Thank you, Human Rights Commission, for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm Ed Traeger, Ward 5, and I think most of you have a handout which just has some data on this. I'm just want to, there's been a lot of question about what is truth and what is not true nowadays. So this is sort of just about that, okay? At the last City Council meeting over in Ypsilanti on December 5th, Sophie Al-Zaim noted that the average age of victims in Gaza was 5 years old. As Sophie said, Israel is at war with kindergartners. I was shocked, and I wanted to know, is this true? Because there's a lot out there that's not true on the internet, right? Well, this news had gone viral on social media based on a report in Verdens Gang, a Norwegian tabloid paper. What the newspaper actually said was that 5-year-olds represented the age group with the highest number of casualties killed in Gaza between October 7th and October 26th. Tabloid newspapers are not known to be bastions of truth. So I felt I needed to investigate this, so I downloaded the data, the same Gazan Ministry of Health report that this tabloid newspaper had used, and I analyzed it myself. I want to point out that this report had been issued by the Gazan ministry just hours after US President Joe Biden had suggested that Palestinians were lying about the actual number of civilians killed. Shame on Joe Biden. International organizations, the World Health Organization, the United Nations, and investigative journalists all the world over have vetted and confirmed that these numbers from the Gazan Health Ministry are generally concordant with their own figures. They're accurate. So it turns out that it is true 5-year-olds are the age group with the highest number of casualties. And you can look on this sheet, followed by 3-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 2-year-olds, and so on. Honestly, the first 18 rows of this table are all children. I cannot think of a greater tragedy than this. On the back side of this, there's also a little table of the median percentiles.
30 seconds.
Okay, really quickly. The 50th percentile means that 50% of the casualties are 15 years old or younger. The 25th percentile means 7 years or younger. Tragic. If you want the average, that happens to be just under 21 years old. So basically, do the people of Gaza have the same rights to enjoy the seminal moments of their youth, the rites of passage, and the joys of raising children, and the joys of watching their grandchildren in old age. Ann Arbor, we are late but not too late to call for an immediate ceasefire and also a local anti-hate task force. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dennis Gundas? Denise, I'll bet.
My name is Deniz Gündüz, and I'm here in front of you once again to call for a resolution for ceasefire in Gaza. This is a Human Rights Commission meeting, and even though a ceasefire isn't on your agenda tonight, it is definitely on ours. Almost 2 million of Ann Arbor tax dollars are being sent to Israel every year, 90 million from Michigan alone. This money, American money, is funding a genocide machine overseas, an illegal occupation that has entrapped the citizens of Gaza in an open-air prison and now a Nazi concentration camp. While we have homeless 1 block away from this building, I filmed them this past week. I spoke about this a couple weeks ago, and I talked to them last week. Okay, we have a man named Detroit Mike. He's 69 years old, living on the streets of Ann Arbor. He did come to you for help, and he was waitlisted. He's been waitlisted for quite a few years. Every week, he gets $1,000 in Social Security income, and he takes that money in the winter and spends 1 week at the local hotel to stay warm, while the rest of the month he scrambles to find shelter outside and freezes during the winter months in Michigan. He is not alone. There are over 100 homeless here in this city. Why is this money, our money, being taken from Ann Arbor and sent overseas to Israel? That's what we as Ann Arbor citizens want to know. Because of improper allocated money, you're creating a crisis there and here locally. Mike is not alone. There's another woman who's 75 years old sleeping under the bridge, okay, near Arborland. I've spoken to her countless number of times. She also does not get assistance. I also filmed along the Huron River, the different homeless camps, and I made a video compilation and tagged almost all of the city council members on Instagram. It has over 7,000 views so far.
30 seconds.
It's going to continue to grow, and I'm going to continue to film footage of the homeless unless you take care of human rights here and stop the genocide and call for a ceasefire resolution there in Gaza. Thank you.
Thank you. Blaine Coleman.
20 years ago, this Human Rights Commission voted unanimously for a resolution against military aid to Israel. 20 years ago, this Human Rights Commission sent that resolution to the Ann Arbor City Council. 20 years ago, this Human Rights Commission asked the Ann Arbor City Council to adopt their resolution against military aid to Israel. I don't want to hear anybody on City Council now with 20,000 more dead Palestinian babies and women and men piled up, all those 20,000 plus bodies piled up in Gaza. I don't want to hear any City Council, any Human Rights Commission member saying, oh yeah, that's not something we can deal with. You damn well can deal with it. You did 20 years ago. You can do it today. Unless you are hell-bent on murdering another 20,000 Palestinians. Don't help Israel murder another 20,000 Palestinians. Many, many city councils have approved resolutions for ceasefire. At the very, very minimum, you can approve a resolution for ceasefire and ask the city council to approve it. At the very least, But if you have any conscience, you will also ask that resolution to include no more military aid to Israel, as the Richmond, California City Council already has done, almost unanimously. If you have any conscience, you understand that you are supplying 2,000-pound bombs, 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs to Israel in massive quantities to blow down whole city blocks of buildings. And what's under those city blocks of buildings? The dead bodies of mostly Palestinian babies and children and women, mostly, trapped under thousands of pounds of concrete. Trapped under thousands of pounds of concrete. That's what you are doing now. Stop it.
30 seconds.
At the very least, you have all the authority you need to say, please stop it. Please stop sending military aid to Israel. You can do that because you did it in 2003, and you can damn well do it now. And of course, approve a resolution at least for ceasefire to stop Israel from murdering more.
Motion. Yes,
Is that who it is?
yes.
Go ahead. Call me.
Moshgan Savas Bisjafani?
Yeah, that was a miserable pronunciation.
I'm sorry.
So I too have been coming to this very Human Rights Commission since 2002. This Human Rights Commission did approve a resolution to cut off military aid to Israel in 2003 after we had been after them for a very long time. There is huge resistance in Ann Arbor City Council and in Ann Arbor Human Rights Commission when it comes to protecting Palestinians. And all of that has transpired to this final episode of murdering 20,000 people, probably more. Some estimates say between 20 and 50,000 people are dead. And that is not counting how many people are dying under the rubble. That is not counting how many people have lost limbs and they have been for life crippled. That is not counting 1.5 million people who have lost their homes. That is not counting infectious diseases that are rampant in Gaza right now because the water is so polluted. That is not counting so many more crimes of the state of Israel. If this city council, after 65 days of relentless bombing of Gaza, if this city council still has nothing to say about human rights of Palestinians, then they are giving a clear sign to the world population, which is now standing with people of Palestine. People of the world are standing with people of Palestine. If you do not rush to pass a resolution to cut off military aid to Israel, to stop these madness of bombing, you don't ask for ceasefire immediate and permanent, if you don't ask for lifting of this savage siege on Gaza immediately, then you are telling the world that you are the same barbarians that murdered and slaughtered natives of this land and took their land. Then you are telling the entire world you are the same barbarians who enslaved Africans and extracted their labor and lynched them. If you don't immediately call
30
for
seconds.
a ceasefire, you are telling the world you are the same barbarians that destroyed Nagasaki and killed hundreds and thousands of people with atom bomb. If you don't do it immediately. And be sure we will come back and we will force you to embrace your own humanity because you're behaving like beasts, but you are actually human beings. We will force you to act like human beings.
Sahira Sherry? Samira, sorry, thank you.
Good evening. I'm here to ask for a ceasefire resolution to stop the genocide in Gaza. According to the United Nations, international human rights law establishes the obligations of governments to act in certain ways or refrain from certain acts to promote and protect the human rights and fundamental freedoms of individuals or groups. Air is considered a human right, except for Palestinians. Israel has killed 20,000 people thus far as of October 7th, depriving them of the basic right to breathe. Food is a human right, but not for Palestinians. Before October 7th, their food was rationed, and after that date, it was entirely cut off, leading to starvation and deaths. Land is considered a human right, but Palestinians have been denied this right since 1948 with their land occupied by Israel. Presently, there's a displacement of people from the south to the north of Gaza, with 80% losing their land to Israel. Water is a human right, but Gaza's water was poisoned before October 7th. And after that date, there was zero water available to 2 million people, thanks to Israel. Additionally, Israel prevents the collection of rainwater by the people of Gaza. Let that sink in for a minute. Rainwater they cannot collect. The right to exist is a human right, yet over 8,000 Palestinian children have been killed since October 7th. Children with newborns denied the chance to live. Innocent men, women, and children are imprisoned in Israeli prisons without having committed any crimes, without due process, enduring severe punishment and solitary confinement. During war, the right to humanitarian aid, including medicine, was not allowed into Gaza for quite some time, or if allowed, it was minimal amounts. Israel violated human rights by waging war on innocent civilians, killing people of all ages, bombing hospitals, doctors, nurses, and aid workers. Justice and peace are human rights, but collective punishment, ethnic cleansing, dehumanization, and various atrocities have been committed against Palestinians. Education is a human right, yet schools and universities are being bombed by Israel. Government in countries complicit in genocide should be held accountable in The Hague for the infringement of human rights by the aggressor, the apartheid state of Israel. In this war of dehumanization, society must uphold justice and equality for all, regardless of race, color, or ethnicity. Israel needs to be sanctioned, prosecuted, and defunded. Freedom of the press is vital, and the protection of the press is mandatory. Israel is involved in an illegal occupation. According to international law, every human being born on this earth must have the right to enjoy freedom, justice, and equality. Israel's actions violate human rights under the Geneva Convention, Amnesty International, the United Nations, and various other organizations. Israel's impunity is attributed to the unlimited protection from the United States of America and Europe. As long as this protection continues, the Israeli government will have a free pass to continue the destruction of Gaza, ongoing genocidal massacres, and the ethnic cleansing of innocent civilians. We request that the Human Rights Commission put the pressure on Washington and let our voices be heard in representing citizens of their demand for the release of all Palestinian prisoners and holding Israel accountable for its actions. The call is for an immediate resolution for ceasefire, the end of war, injustice for the Palestinians, including the right of return and self-determination and their homeland.
Sandra Alcini?
Hi. Thank you for allowing me to speak in support of Palestine. First and foremost, we need a resolution for a ceasefire right away. By the time I finish speaking, 3 children will have died in Gaza. I'm a student at U of M. My work is in researching land management and the ethics of our humanity and how that influences our use and extraction of natural resources. Back in October, Israel began selling exploration permits for natural gas under Gaza, and I believed that Biden's involvement in Palestine was to secure the extensive amounts of natural gas located underneath the Gaza Strip. Then I heard about the Ben Gurion Canal. This canal would be an alternative to the Suez Canal since Israel has been banned. The port of the canal would be in southern Gaza, causing all of Israel's imports and exports to run through Palestine. This would also create a huge source of income for Palestine since it would control its own port in Gaza. Upon further research, I discovered that the Biden administration has been stacked with BlackRock executives. For instance, the financial advisors to both Biden and Harris are both executives of the BlackRock firm. BlackRock is an investment firm that designs, produces, and provides weapons to Israel. Biden has made billions from weapons sales to Israel during his presidency. It's no secret that we have an epidemic of gun violence in our schools in America. Mental health of our teens grows continually more fragile. Our kids grow more and more disconnected. Children are a target in America for mass shootings and sex trafficking, with children disappearing constantly, especially from migrant and indigenous communities. And now the children of Gaza are the targets of military testing. Are we, as a city, going to remain complicit while a monetized federal government makes these decisions for our children's future? We really must be vigilant in creating boundaries and advocating for a free and vibrant culture in Ann Arbor for ourselves and for our children. The United States has just facilitated a public massacre of over 20,000 people in Gaza. This is an unfathomable level of oppression. Oppression creates resistance, so it should not surprise us that there is resistance in Palestine. Blowing up Gaza will not stop the resistance. Killing members of Hamas will not stop the resistance, because nothing can stop resistance as long as there's oppression. So what kind of leaders do we want to be? The answer is not complicated. Either the brutal genocide of Palestinians and other Arabs is okay with you, or it is not. I call for an immediate ceasefire in Palestine now. Thank you.
Odelia Flora Bush.
Hello. I am here to ask you to pass a resolution calling for a ceasefire. People in Palestine are being killed. Innocent people are being killed. The Israeli military is bombing schools, hospitals, houses, and more. The right to life is the most fundamental human right that we all possess. So why are innocent civilians in Gaza and the West Bank not being given this right? At the time of writing this, over 18,000 people have been killed in the Gaza Strip since October 7th. Over 8,000 of those people were children. There are also many people still under the rubble. In the West Bank, also at the time of writing this, around 265 Palestinians have been killed. 69 were children. In addition to the heavy bombing and shooting, there is a severe lack of food and water. Access to food and water is a human right. Many Palestinians are also being detained without charge or trial in administrative detention, and subjected to inhumane conditions. The number of Palestinians in administrative detention, again, without charge or trial, has nearly doubled since October 1st. Unfair detainment is a human rights violation. So is torture. People in Palestine deserve human rights, just like everyone else. A ceasefire is needed to put an end to the atrocious human rights violations happening in Gaza and the West Bank right now. I am asking you all, as the Human Rights Commission, to take a stand against genocide, against apartheid, against human rights violations, and call for a ceasefire. In addition to this, I would like you to call to allow humanitarian assistance to be allowed into Gaza, and to call for an end to U.S. funding of the Israeli military. Make it known that you do not support the genocide of the Palestinian people. We need a complete and permanent ceasefire now. Thank you.
Joan Lowenstein. Joan Lowenstein?
Good evening. Why is it that anti-Israel activists are so adamant that Israeli accounts of Hamas murders and rapes are untrue? Israelis have always been reluctant to show themselves as victims. It is anathema to the Israeli culture, a culture of survival and strength, to ever admit that Jews can be victims, and it is certainly never accepted to glory in victimhood or martyrdom. In the early years of the state, in the 40s and 50s, Holocaust survivors hid their tattooed numbers. No one wanted to be reminded of victims, of perceived weakness, of horrors. Throughout Israel's history, there have been terrorist attacks, bombers and murderers sneaking in across all the borders to kill Jews. But even during the murderous Second Intifada, barely 20 years ago, when suicide bombers blew up buses,
Please
wedding
stop.
parties,
Thank you.
Passover celebrations, Israelis would immediately clean up the damage and immediately rebuild. No one wanted to be reminded of death and destruction. So imagine how difficult it is for Israelis now to show the world what the terrorists have done. The destruction of the kibbutzim, the murders, the mutilations, the rape. They do not glory in that, but the world must know about the existential threat. It is a fight for survival. There are tragedies. It is war. In the rage of the moment, an Israeli official called the Hamas terrorists animals. In the words of Israeli prize-winning author and peace activist David Grossman, I don't know if these people are animals, but they certainly have lost their humanity.
Thank you. Murid Taurus. Murid Taurus? I'm sorry, did I really ruin it?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all right.
Sorry, Murad.
No, it's okay. Thank you. I'm a political scientist, a Ward II resident, and an Ann Arbor public school parent. I'm Palestinian, and I'm your neighbor. I know you're committed to human rights, and I thank you for your work. It's why I ask you to also support calls for a ceasefire. Anyone who wants a just solution for Palestinians and Israelis needs to ask for a ceasefire so that negotiations can resume. No matter how indirect, any pressure that this commission can put on City Council to say in no uncertain terms that the genocide against Palestinians in Gaza is unacceptable would be of value. This is also pressure to ask our Congresswoman, who did call for a ceasefire, to also draft a resolution that she and her colleagues would be comfortable signing. That's the ask. As a body concerned with human rights, please support calls for a ceasefire from your community, and please endorse any calls for a ceasefire should they come from City Council. Endorsing a ceasefire does not mean endorsing Hamas. It doesn't mean giving up on hostages or on detainees. We have only seen hostages returned through political solutions. It doesn't mean that you don't have compassion for Ann Arbor's Jewish residents, and it doesn't mean that they are in danger. They should never be. I regret that the Ann Arbor synagogue was the site of anti-Israel protests. I think that that's wrong. Endorsing a ceasefire does mean extending that same compassion and protection to your Arab and Palestinian neighbors. In this, we're supported by our anti-Zionist Jewish brothers and sisters and by the majority of Americans. A ceasefire affirms that our lives and the lives of our children deserve the same compassion and protection, and the failure to speak for a ceasefire has contributed to a public climate where it's open season on Palestinians as we are further dehumanized. I'm going to talk about two things very quickly. The first is the ongoing human rights violations in Gaza. So first, right now, estimates are that 25,000 children have been orphaned. To put this in perspective, Ann Arbor public schools have just over 17,000 students, I believe. So that would be if every child in our schools had a parent killed, and every child in Ipsy's public schools and in Dexter's public schools had the same, and they would still be being bombarded. 50,000 people have been injured. That's the combined number of residents of any two wards in Ann Arbor. More journalists have been killed in these 66 days than in the 2 decades of the Vietnam War. There are human rights violations, as we all know. The second thing that I want to say is that this is relevant to you. I mean, Ann Arbor was ranked the most educated city in the U.S., so we all know that cities don't make foreign policy. But what we do know is that we can put pressure. At the university, at the city, there's an asymmetry because both have provided statements, condemnations, and special protections for matters impacting communities. And what I would ask is for the Human Rights Commission to stand up for communities like ours, as it has done in the past. Thank you.
Hasmi Madani.
Do I press a button or?
I started it.
Oh, thank you. Hello, my name is Tasneem. Over the last 2 months, we have been collectively witnessing gross violations of international humanitarian law unfolding in Gaza. In the latest installment of what Israeli forces refer to as mowing the lawn, over 18,000 blades of grass have been killed in bombardments on hospitals, homes, schools, universities, refugee camps, and places of worship. Over 1 million civilians have been internally displaced on a strip of land roughly the size of Detroit and 4 times its population. And in just 2 months, I've lost 30 members of my family, the youngest not even having reached his 3rd birthday. The oldest surviving member of my family is currently living in a makeshift room on a relative's roof, his health declining due to losing access to his medication for weeks. Make no mistake, what we're seeing in Gaza is the most clear-cut case of genocide, as recognized by former director of the New York office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Craig McIver, and others. But this isn't anything new. The systemic erasure of Palestinians and the dismissal of their suffering, despite their trauma being on full display, is nothing new. As an Ann Arbor native and a Palestinian Syrian American student at the University of Michigan School of Education, your silence and inaction in response to the US-funded, Ann Arbor-funded onslaughts on Gaza is deeply disappointing. Members of this community have been calling on you, our representatives, to end our complicity in Palestinian suffering for over 20 years.
That's correct.
To add insult to injury, fellow Palestinians, peace activists, and allies at U of M have been subjected to routine silencing and harassment simply for demanding our leadership to represent our will and to protect us. Fellow students have experienced verbal abuse by university advisory board member without consequence, have been doxxed, have endured threats to their physical safety, including death threats. Peaceful protests have been over-policed by university police and the AAPD. A student body slammed and handcuffed by a police officer after her hijab was torn off. We don't feel safe or protected by those committed to serving and representing us right now, whether by our universities and schools, the AAPD, or this commission. I'm therefore calling on you to renew your commitment to human rights by taking immediate action to respond to harms committed against peace activists in our community, and by drafting a resolution that enshrines the protection of all individuals showing solidarity with Palestinians in the ongoing genocide taking place in Gaza.
30
This
seconds.
is the least we can do to protect our diverse community from discrimination, including Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and anti-Arab bigotry. Thank you.
Faiz Saeed.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm just going to quote some numbers from the Euromed Human Rights Monitor. This is day 66, the Israeli genocide in the Gaza Strip. 24,142 killed. Out of that, 9,420 are children, 4,910 women, injuries of 48,901, journalists killed 81, displaced 1.8 million people displaced, completely destroyed residential units 62,840, partially destroyed residential units 171,220, destroyed press headquarters 163, damaged schools 282, destroyed industrial facilities 1,312, damaged mosques 134, damaged churches 3, targeted health staff 462, targeted health facilities 131, out of that 23 hospitals and 56 clinics. So I'm very confused, at the state that we find ourselves in, that I have to come here and try to convince some people that this is bad. I'm really out of words. I don't know what to think. What kind of world do I live in? I thought this was a civilized society.
It's not.
That I thought that we value life. These numbers are beyond anything. And just for me to come here and say, please, can we please have a ceasefire, is really shameful.
Degrading.
It's very shameful. Yeah, it's very degrading. The human dignity has been just torn apart. Where is this? Where are we? I mean, this is soul searching. And you are in the world community speaking. We are isolated in the world, rightfully so. Nobody looking at the situation is going to say, no, please stop the bombs. Nobody's going to oppose that. But majority of our leaders are. I have to come to my city council and say, please, can you please tell the leaders to stop the bombs? This is where we are at. I saw videos where kids are in rubble trying to get some help for their families, that a small little girl is trying to console her brother. The small kid is trying to console the other kid as he's passing away. I saw a mosque being desecrated with army going in and chanting songs and desecrating religious spaces. So I hope you do the needful. Thank you.
Thank you. For you to not have brought a resolution tonight yourselves is an insult to us.
Bashar,
It's an insult to us.
Halan. Bashar Halan.
What's the name again?
Bashav Halan, Halan, Hallan.
It is Bashar Hala, you mean?
La.
Hala? Okay. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, I wasn't sure you're saying my name. Hello, everybody. We stand here today. This is our third time showing up here in a few weeks. As claims were made earlier about us being anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic, I would just like to inform everybody here that we are not anti-Jewish. Matter of fact, a lot of Jewish brothers and sisters have joined us in protesting and have joined us in calling for a ceasefire. They have said multiple times over and over that Israel does not represent them. Being Jewish does not mean you're Zionist, but being Zionist is what we're against. We're here against Zionism. We're not here against any Jewish people. So just to make that clear. We are frustrated. We show up week after week, and we've been asking for a ceasefire resolution. However, we still are met with claims like we've heard earlier about false rape claims, false killing claims, killing that Israel itself admitted a week ago that their own military killed their own people on October 7th because they thought there was militias from Hamas in the kibbutz. Their own Apaches targeted their own civilians. As we stand here and as we're frustrated with the lies, I'd like to apologize to our fellow city council members if we were being harsh at any time during any of the meetings we were here. City Councilwoman Aisha, City Councilwoman Lynn, I know you guys, we've talked before, and I'd like to apologize on behalf of me and my group that proposed the resolution to you guys if we were frustrated. But we do wake up every day and we see kids that are being killed, and we see women that are being killed, and people that are being misplaced from their homes. Every day I wake up and the first thing I open Instagram, And today I saw a video of a little child that has lost her legs. She's being recorded and she has also lost her parents. And she is saying, I wish I could die right now. There is nothing left. I have no legs, I have no parents. We wake up to such videos of kids' limbs are out. Kids have lost their parents. If you saw the video of
30 seconds.
the grandpa that calls his granddaughter the soul of the soul, as he hugs her and he kisses her as she is dead and he's holding her between his arms. So I am sorry that we have been harsh, but this is what we go through every day. We go through these videos and through these pictures every day. As somebody that's lost his grandpa, I know how it is to lose parents, how it is to lose children. It is very frustrating. I'm calling every one of you guys, your Human Rights Commission, please help us introduce this ceasefire to end this human suffering. At least you can stand on the right side of history, just like our neighboring cities in Canton, in Ypsilanti, Detroit, Dearborn, and all the other cities in Metro Detroit are following. Thank you.
You should apologize to us.
Please. Basit Zafar.
Hi, my name is Basit Zafar. Thank you to the Human Rights Commission. I realize you're all volunteers, so thank you for doing this job. I am a professor at the University of Michigan. I'm an economist. I moved here 4 years ago from Phoenix. In Phoenix, and when we were moving here, we were very happy because it's a very diverse, very educated town. I'll give you an example of the kinds of things we saw in Phoenix. We were asked to take down our Black Lives Matter sign down because no political signs were allowed, and there were Trump flags everywhere around in the neighborhood, okay? When I moved here, I thought, okay, it's a very diverse town, a very educated town, and it certainly is. But one thing I've realized is, if I lived in Texas or in Phoenix, Arizona, or one of the more conservative parts of the country, people would be very upfront about their hypocrisy and their bigotry. The thing here is that in a place like Ann Arbor, people are quite educated and no one is going to come out and say certain lives matter more than others. But at the end of the day, what matters is the behavior that we see. I am here to ask this committee to put pressure on the city council to at least introduce a ceasefire resolution. I'm not even saying that you put pressure on them to pass one. So I just don't understand why the city council is resistant to introducing a resolution. I have been emailing them. I have emailed the mayor. I have not gotten a response. And I'm not going to give you statistics here. I think you know very well what's going on around the world. Here on campus, the messaging from the university has been very problematic. I'm a faculty member there. The faculty realizes what's going on and has been pushing back against the administrators. We're doing what we can do. I just want to mention a few things that have been mentioned by the council as to why they have not been willing to introduce a resolution. First of all, they say that they don't get involved in foreign policy, but their actions contradict that statement. They have passed resolutions in the past regarding Burma and South Africa. Our mayor, after the terrorist incident on October 7th, at the end of the day, every life matters, right? We're not here to make a case that certain lives matter more than others. We're trying to emphasize to the council here that please, think about it. If it were 20,000 Americans who had been killed, right, or 20,000 Jews who had been killed, how would you have responded, right? The reality here is we're talking about 20,000 Arabs that have been killed, and the council can't be even bothered to introduce a resolution. What's going on here? At least. So there is a precedent here. The mayor, for example, led the prayers for peace for a foreign country. So at one side, he can say, we don't get involved in foreign policy. But on the other side, he is taking actions which contradict that. The other thing is, it's sad. There are towns around us who are less educated, lower income than us, Canton, Ypsilanti, Detroit. They have passed resolutions. What does that say about our city? And finally, the inaction of this council is setting a precedent. There are groups that are showing up at our school board meetings telling the school board not to teach kids history. At the end of the day, this is about erasure of a group.
Everybody. Now you gotta put the agenda.
We've come to the end of our list. Is there anybody who has not been able to speak, who asked to speak? who has not spoken so far, but still wants to.
You have to speak into the
Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have,
She would like to speak.
okay. Please come up to the podium. We have a little bit more time. I want to make sure everybody can, we've got somebody. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Aya. I was going to share some stories today of friends being buried under rubble in Gaza, or friends' families who've been shot point blank by Israeli soldiers. You can't begin to understand how dehumanizing it is, rather than be able to mourn the lives of our friends and family, that we have to stand up here and explain to you that they're worthy of being mourned. You can't understand the dehumanization when we see the world open its arms to Ukrainian refugees and close its doors to Palestinian refugees. No water, no food, no electricity has been allowed in. Thank you to the previous speaker who had mentioned what happened during the Holocaust when the Jews were tattooed with numbers by the Nazis. Palestinians are currently being numbered by Israeli soldiers on their arm. Parents are writing the names of their children on their arms so they can be identified when their limbs are blown apart. I can't believe it's taken us this long to say something, to do something. We don't have another week. We don't have another 2 weeks while our family members are waiting for us and they're dying. They don't have time. 24,000 people have been murdered. These numbers are climbing. They're not confirmed. There's people buried under rubble. People can't find their family members. Friends buried under rubble, buried under their dead family members for days. We demand that the Human Rights Commission urge the City Council to immediately pass a ceasefire resolution that states true facts, not propaganda that has been thrown on TV, that people have been spitting recklessly, that has also contributed to the murder of our people in Palestine. For the past 75 years, this has been an issue. War crimes committed by Israel, noted by Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Save the Children. We have computers, we can check the facts. Please immediately urge that a ceasefire resolution is set. Thank you.
There's one person over here. One more, Ken.
Good evening, Human Rights Commissioners. My name is Miriam, and I'm a tax-paying resident. My daughter Zainab goes to U of M, where students from a coalition of over 50 student orgs have been trying to meet with U of M President Ono. President Ono refuses to meet the students and continues to side with and support the Zionist Israeli regime, to the detriment of Palestinian and Arab students on campus who have experienced increasing amounts of anti-Arab and anti-Palestinian discrimination, with 2 female Arab students being doxxed by Zionist organizations. On November 17th, Zainab, my daughter, participated in a protest at the Ruth Bin Administration Building, where students were blocked from entering during business hours. Some students were able to get in, but as my daughter entered, she had her hijab pulled, was grabbed by police and slammed to the ground and cuffed. Videos of the incident circulated on social media. Imagine my rage as her mother when I saw how she was treated by officers who are paid by our tuition dollars. Now imagine mothers in Palestine watching in horror as their children are killed in front of their eyes or arrested by the IDF without charge and carted off to rot in Israeli jails funded by our tax dollars. 21,614. Do you know what that number stands for? It's the population of Ipsi, a city right next to us. Now imagine that a genocidal regime was bombarding Ipsi so that not a single civilian remained, and the same regime was threatening and bombarding our borders. Would we just stand idly by and let that happen, let alone support this? I don't think so. So why is this allowed to continue? Why were the Ukrainians given support by this very city council while the genocide in Gaza is allowed to continue? Because they're brown Arabs and we're white? Hospitals, schools, mosques, churches have been bombed. The fact of the matter is that we shouldn't have to come in front of you to prove our humanity. Palestinians don't need to stand in front of you to prove their humanity. The death toll is 23,000 and is rising every minute we don't call for a ceasefire. You know it's serious when the rest of the UN has to step in to vote on a resolution uniting for peace, when the US continues to use its veto power to fund a genocide. Ann Arbor needs to do better, to be better. We need to lead by example and join the other cities around us like Ypsi, Canton, Dearborn, and many others that have signed a ceasefire resolution. This madness has got to stop. Why does this matter, but this not matter? Why do brown lives not matter to us? Thank you.
We have one more left.
Hi, my name is Samer. Yesterday, the president was in a donors meeting, and he was telling the donors, according to CNN, that once I gifted Netanyahu a photo and wrote at the bottom or at the top, "I love you, but I don't agree with a damn thing you had to say." That's Biden saying in front, check it on CNN. That's what he said about Netanyahu. We know that he has no good relationship to Netanyahu. But let me say this. This government that controls Israel has multiple people, like Itamar Ben-Gvir, who is the national security minister. He lives in this settlement called Kiryat Arba. Kiryat Arba, where an American guy named Benjamin Goldstein, who is a physician from New York, lived there. And in February 25th, 1994, he walked into a mosque and shot dead 29 people and injured 125 while praying. That's Kiryat Arba, where currently the Kahana High Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, lives. Bezalel Smotrich lives in another settlement in the West Bank. Bezalel Smotrich is the finance minister. This government is built on the concept of genocide and moving the Palestinians out of the land, moving it, and they actually, after October 7th, introduced millions of dollars, millions of shekels to build more settlements. If this government, and if Biden is saying this about Netanyahu, what can we say other than he's hypocritical, and we're being hypocritical but not taking action, but not moving forward with making a resolution to cease fire? I mean, it's a must. It's not a joke. It's not something that we need to entertain just for entertainment. If Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir, and actually the chief of staff also lives in a settlement, these people, in their mind, is that they need to move these people out of that land. And that's why when they committed whatever they did in the northern Gaza, pushed people to the south and then bombarded them in the south because they want them to go to Sinai, move them to Sinai. And then I'm sure from Sinai they want them to Jordan, and then whatever they want, not to Jordan, I meant to inner Egypt. So the idea is we need to look at these things. These are the facts. And the killing and the death, I mean, all of us can see it on TV. But we need to look at this government and check CNN. If this is what Biden is saying and he's acting opposite to what he's saying, it's so detrimental to our national policy. We are the people, and they need to listen to us, and they're not listening to us. And I hope you can listen to us, and hope you can check the facts and take action on this. Thank you.
I assume that all of you have heard this, and even though it's not new, it's pretty heavy, very heavy. I thought about what we were going to do after hearing for an hour these kinds of stories, facts, concerns, pain, anger. And my first thought was, what do you do next? My second thought was that I didn't want everybody to leave and are starting a meeting just like, like nothing happened, because something did happen. So I'd like to suggest that we spend about 3 minutes just taking it all in and understanding, not fighting, not reacting, not trying to hear people. We've got lots of different things that were said. All of them were valuable, important things, and a lot of them were very painful things.
Ms. Stanbaugh, we have been taking it for 65 days. We want action. We don't want to sit here and take it in. We've been taking it in.
Leslie?
We have been taking it in for 65 days. And you have done
You
nothing.
have to say point of order. She can't just be screaming out.
I'm going to,
Please sit down. Please sit down.
You have to say point of order. She can't just scream out in the middle of the meeting. We're going to do a moment of
let's take a moment of silence, and then we can go on,
Moment of silence.
please.
We don't need more silence. We need action. If you sit there and let
You
them
have to
to
say
take
order.
minutes and minutes, it will go on forever. I've been here for 20 years.
I'm going to have to ask you
20
to,
years, okay? We have to push them or they will do nothing.
You're not helping our cause, please.
please.
You've always been saying that and you just sit down.
You're hurting our cause right now.
No,
Really?
So sit down, please, or leave.
yes.
But we do want
Let
to
him
know.
discuss.
Quiet. But we do want to know what you have done so far.
Please, let's have a moment of silence first, then you will hear. What-
Have you done anything? Please inform us if you have.
You have to understand our frustration,
I-
is that we've been screaming about this. Screaming, and there's been, when we interrupt, we don't want to interrupt. We understand it's rude. Everyone hushing, you guys don't understand that what we're living with every day and what we're suffering through every single day. We have to scream because nobody is listening.
Okay.
Nobody is
We
listening.
are,
Here is not going to work. Yeah, we'll sit here, yes, we are very sorry, and then we go home. This is not going to work. We have to do something. If you're sitting on that place, it's your responsibility to take some action.
okay.
I'm going to,
How we do that?
And I also want to say that it's not only affecting Palestine, but also Lebanon. I'm from South Lebanon, and we have been bombed with phosphorus chemicals. What did we do to Israel?
Okay, okay.
So
Let's hear from Aisha about something, one of the things that they're thinking about doing, or they're going to do. Please sit down and listen.
I know that there's, a lot of pain in the room. And I just, I thank you all for coming and for, again, sharing your story. So, I just want to say that, and I've previously stated this, and I want to say it again, that I'm unequivocally in support of an unconditional ceasefire, permanent ceasefire in Palestine. I tried to say it at the last meeting. I don't think it was heard. That's my view. I joined other elected officials in Lansing, labor unions, a number of cities across Michigan in calling for a lasting ceasefire and for humanitarian aid. I condemn the horrific acts that happened on October 7th. My heart breaks for all the families as well as my Jewish friends and neighbors. I pray for the safe return of all hostages. Attacks must end. I too condemn the protests that happened in our community in front of synagogues. This is wrong. We can't equate the actions of a political government or a regime with an entire religion or ethnic group. This is true of Israel and the Jewish people, and this is also true with Palestine and Hamas. As of today, more than 18,000 Palestinians have died, including almost 10,000 children. The World Health Organization reports widespread infectious disease across Palestine, lack of water, food, and medicine. I know that this is also a local issue. Humanity is an everywhere issue, right? I know that there's rampant infringements happening on civil rights, and there's discrimination that's happening here to both groups. Beyond civil rights infringements, I also know that people are losing loved ones here. Today, I spent part of my day helping my brother's best friend get his family out of Gaza. It's tragic.
And tell us what you have done. Quiet. Tell us what you have actually done.
Please stop yelling.
What you have done and what have you done about it? What have you done?
Asking for her to be removed. Am I able to finish? Are you done with centering yourself? Because right now, I want to speak to the pain and to the communities in the room. So if you're done with performing and centering yourself, then I will go ahead. I have been working on a ceasefire resolution, and I'm continuing to work on one. I'm being joined by Councilmember Lynn Song and joined by Councilmember Erica Briggs. I'm hoping it will come on Monday. I join other elected officials in the city, in our state, in our nation. They're calling for this, and I support the UN General Assembly call for a ceasefire. I hope that our community can come together and support peace, both abroad and at home.
Go ahead. So Councilmember Aisha Ghazi Edwin is the only council member with family who is hearing your experiences differently than any other city council member. And I thank her for having these conversations because they're painful. They come from within family. So I know there's frustration with your elected leaders in not responding to your calls to action. But I wouldn't suggest that we haven't taken this seriously and that we haven't heard your pain. I've approached this, in like very technical ways, meaning that, our purview here at the city council is within Ann Arbor. A lot of us who sit at this table as volunteers and who came to public service are responding to the pain and suffering that we see here within our communities with our homelessness. We have double the number of homeless families this year compared to last year, right? I am working on trying to see if we can find public property, a city building, so that we can house homeless families before it gets too cold. There is work that happens in this building, in all city buildings, every single day for the care and safety of our residents. At this particular table, it's about discrimination and an ordinance that is, at the time has been challenged over and over again, where there was an issue not too long ago of whether, LGBTQ rights should be protected under this ordinance. It's been challenged politically. The discussions that happened at this table have happened to affect our neighbors and our loved ones here, our colleagues, our children. But it doesn't mean that we're immune to the suffering of families that we've left behind. Aisha and I come from generations of refugees, right? We know what war can mean and the suffering of war. I had mentioned that at the previous city council meeting, my mother was in a prison camp before she was placed in a refugee camp. My grandfather was electrocuted by the French when he was trying to fight colonialism. We all have stories of indiscriminate pain and war and suffering and tragedy, but we are here, to start anew. We are here to try to figure out a better path towards peace for our children and our neighbors. I am sorry we don't have the power of Congress. I made a comment that we're not even the model UN. We are not the UN Human Rights Commission. We don't convene with the UN. But the hopes that we have here, the issues and the complaints that we try to resolve here are supposed to be more immediate. It is neighbor talking to neighbor saying, I hear you, I want to help you. It is not going through bureaucracy. It is not going through the politics of parties. It is not going through members of Congress. It's supposed to be more immediate and more impactful. The money here that we collect as taxes, I know folks have mentioned that we are funding military arms. City taxes, only 24% of Ann Arbor taxes stay within here to operate our city services. Over 30% goes to education. Ann Arbor city dollars stay within the city, except for the money that we are the only municipality that gives general fund dollars to the county for social services. Pittsfield Township, all the other townships, Ipsy, do not give money for our homelessness and to serve others. We commit to serving others. That's the only way we extend our dollars and care beyond our city boundaries. But we do not, the money that's a separate check you cut for federal. And I say that to make to be clear, because when we do our work here, our budgeting has always been prioritized for folks who've been elected and working here on social services, on justice, on equity, on police budget, on unarmed crisis response. That's meaningful. That has not happened in decades here. Our predecessors argued so that they could. My predecessor wanted Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day to be celebrated at once. She thought they were the same, right? So we've struggled to have conversations in this community on race equity. When we talk about Black Lives Matter, it wasn't just because the mayor put the flag up in front of City Hall. It meant that we had programmatic ways to respond directly to that. Racism is a public health crisis, and that's what the city had approved, and that's what the county had affirmed. That meant we used COVID ARPA dollars to make sure that Black Lives mattered in real ways, in the budget, and staffed, and that we do not commit more harm to our residents, right? So you want us to make a statement, but that statement has to be meaningful, and it's reviewed by our legal staff. For the expertise that we have here, we don't have foreign affairs expertise to check us in our statements, right? So again, I just want to affirm that our power is limited, but it doesn't mean that we don't care, and it doesn't mean that we're not empathetic to this, and it doesn't mean that we haven't had conversations with other elected leaders, because we are also constituents. We also voted for our congressional reps and our senators. So when I said we had conversations with community members, I would hope that you would be able to have conversations in this audience. You are sitting next to each other, but you are turning your backs to each other. You're rooting against each other as each one comes up to this podium. And then you go home and your kids are in the same spaces. What does it tell our kids? You come here and you ask public leaders to make a difference, and we try to every day, right? But I would love it if you turned to each other and had frank conversations about the pain, the posters that you're holding, right? So the other, and lastly, if I can just say, if you want to be an effective organizer, there are people remaining here. There are people remaining here who haven't left. I brought, and this sounds trivial, but it's meaningful as an elected, because it is very hard to understand bureaucracy and who does what, when, for whom, right? This is the Washington County Directory of Elected Leaders.
We never asked you to work with the Nazis or to ask you for the Nazis. Yes. You're spitting on us.
So, generally.
She went back to her seat and she started giggling with her friend.
How do you have a conversation with people like that?
Mention the tattoos.
It's literally a fact.
We can't talk to everyone. I understand that.
That's
Yes.
why there's resistance, because talking isn't working.
So, Aisha and I are both social workers. Before we came to this amazing opportunity as your elected leaders,
Yeah.
it took a lot to understand who does what when. So I know this is trivial, but it might be helpful to someone, and that's why we speak to this. These are directories of your elected leaders who represent
We are
a wider
trying to do
constituency
something.
than we do. And I have these for you that's available. So I know this will come up for City Council. We have a City Council meeting on Monday. This is the Human Rights Commission. We have an agenda to address the Human Rights Commission ordinance work. And I know our chair will continue on that. And I know I'll see you again on Monday when we actually do City Council work with its own agenda. And I know there are other council members who will have. Hopefully we can have something to discuss too then. But
Can you explain what the barrier is to just passing a ceasefire resolution?
Well, first it has to be proposed, right? And then if it's too late, prior to the meeting date, it needs to have a couple number of sponsors. One of them is sitting right there. If you don't have enough sponsors, it doesn't get to the agenda. So that's part of the process. Just one second, because I want to finish my response. What Councilmember Song was saying is that there's pain in this room on both sides, and it has to be acknowledged. We are not sitting in the seats next to you. We don't hear comments being said. No one is both sides saying anything. There are members of the Jewish community who are also in pain. I am not denying the atrocities. I am not denying the atrocities that are happening in Palestine.
We don't even really know what happened October 7th. Israel refused to investigate. So both sides of this.
I think, yeah, we need to close this discussion. I can't get in a back and forth right now. You can contact me.
Thank you very much for coming.
That's what I'm trying to do, but I mean, that's what we're hoping. Yeah, that's what we're working towards.
Thank you for coming.
No, we appreciate that. That's, this is what our goal is, right?
This is what you're saying. And you've made some progress. There's some people have heard you. We have heard you, and we are going to be also talking about what we can do that would be most effective. We care about the effectiveness. One of the things that we know is that a resolution is rarely effective. But there are things we can do here, and it's a possibility that may be part of the solution or part of the things we could do. But there are things we can do here, especially dealing with Islamophobia and anti-Semitism and the way people are treated for the beliefs that they have, the political beliefs they have. And that we certainly can do. And we can also deal with your complaints when you file them. Please keep us in mind. Let us know what's going on, what is bothering you, why you're so concerned. We're looking for places to intervene where we can be effective. We want to make a difference. We don't want to just do things because we should do them. We feel your pain. We hear what you're saying. And I value the fact, I appreciate the fact that you spent your time, your evening with us. Thank you for coming. Thank you. We're going to go on with our regular meeting. Thank you very much. Watch our agenda in the future. I think you'll see some things you might be interested in. Thank you.
Okay, you might want to call for a break because she's stepping away and...
Yeah.
Should we take like a 5-minute break?
We're going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you very much. Be back in 5. Yes.
I was referencing CNN.com about,
Yes, yes.
So please, I want everybody to check it because
Our meeting.
Okay, just start.
Oh, just start. First thing on the agenda is
You got to approve the agenda.
you got to approve the agenda. Can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Sorry, I have a motion to add an item to the agenda.
Okay. What would you like to add?
I would like to add discussion.
Just 1 second, I'm sorry. Point of order, the meeting has begun. If you would like to have your conversations outside of the meeting, please do so.
We stop having conversations so that we could meet?
I'm sorry?
We can't meet with everybody talking.
Oh, you're gonna.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry. No problem.
Okay. On the floor is a motion to add something to the agenda. Sarah?
I'd like to add to the agenda discussion of Aisha's resolution that she's bringing on Monday and how can we potentially support it, if we should support it as a teacher.
Point of clarification, do you want that to be added under city council update?
So it would be an update from city council and then a further discussion from commissioners about how we could support it.
Any discussion? Yeah, where is, we're missing him. I guess he's not back. We still have a quorum. Do we have a, yeah, all in favor of that? Oh, here he is. Why don't you, yeah, say it again.
To add to the agenda, that Aisha would update us more about her resolution that she's bringing forward on Monday, and that we would have time to discuss as the HRC if we wanted to do anything in support of it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Who made the motion and who seconded it?
I made the motion.
Yeah.
Sarah did.
Can I get a second?
Second? No second?
Well, I'm going to second it.
Okay. Second? All in favor? Are we approving the agenda with the changes?
Yeah, that would
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, it's on. Approval of the October minutes. Can we have a motion?
Motion to approve the October minutes, or November minutes.
November minutes, right. Does it say October?
November, I just misheard.
Good. Mine says October.
Second.
You second?
Sure, I'll
Pam seconds. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Follow-up discussion on outside group work. City Council, Lynn and Aisha. Let's start with the things that are not this and end with the resolution, the proposed resolution.
I have made no progress. I've made no progress since we were in the basement and talking about facial recognition. I think I passed
Okay.
on a book. And I was supposed to follow up with Councilmember Harrison and our city prosecutor on combining the language from the ACLU, what the ACLU is proposing and what our last version was as a resolution versus an ordinance review. So my apologies again.
Okay. Will you look into it next time?
Yeah.
I mean, Andrew, I realize you're kind of busy, and I've just gotten busier. Is there anything else going on in city council that we should know about that we might not, that's important for us?
I mean, the housing situation is really rough
Yes.
right now. Like really, really rough.
Lots of homelessness.
Yeah, well, we have our housing commissioners looking at a city lot, a city building that the University of Michigan had vacated, the dental clinic.
Oh, yeah.
So if that can possibly could be converted to housing for families, because we need like bigger units, and it's really difficult to find that in the county. And I think Alpha House I think it's only 13 families can be temporarily sheltered, and we're expecting 600 something
600
in the county. So this time last year, there was about 350, and now we're over 600 who will be homeless this season. So there's quite an emergency, but the county had approved over $2 million in eviction avoidance relief. And they found that in this past April, where City Council did a $500,000 budget amendment to help folks who were in hotels temporarily find longer shelter, we found that one of the efforts was for $800 or two $400 a month checks was able to prevent, I think, like 30% from returning to homelessness. So there's some potential in being able to divert the hundreds into other ways for, not just wait for our temporary shelters. So housing is still a human right.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And it's a human right that we need to deal with. Are they going to still house people in hotels, you think? Is there a plan to do that?
I think so, yeah. It's just expensive.
Yeah, I'm sure
It's really
it is.
expensive. Oh, and there's a new hire for the Office of Economic Development. So Tony Ayumi, who is the director of the YMCA, is the new director. So hopefully there'll be some traction in trying to figure out funding for emergency housing work and then social services, as well as economic development.
But economic development is very different from that, isn't it?
It's in the same office, yeah. The County Office of Economic and Community Development is the one who figures out the county funding for social services and development. I missed the last council meeting because we had 2 viruses going through my household, but I'm fine, and I'm not bringing the plague to the commission. But Aisha was there, so Aisha can give the update from last Monday, right?
I wish I could remember. Right now, there's just so much happening, I can't really remember.
Yes.
I guess ban the box stuff is something.
That is something that we're wondering about.
Yeah, that you all helped to support, create. It was going to be on the agenda. I think it might still actually be on the agenda for next Monday, but I am likely going to ask the clerk to push it to January because the next meeting will also probably be.
Yeah. Are you going to have the social work class do a presentation? They did a very good presentation.
Yeah,
on
I've
that.
invited them to come because it was their research that really helped to identify that we could get, our expectations of contractors in line with what we expect as our own hiring practices as a city. So,
I'd really like to see the purchasing agents
the
be
purchasing,
part of
yeah.
that.
And the other thing I think human rights, this is a logistical reason why it should also be delayed is human rights as a commission also needs to figure out how, are we going to have a part in helping to promote this? What is our role in this? It's something that I was asked by the city attorney's office. And Linda, I think you and I have discussed before, it's not our place to necessarily say, is your employee asking for it? That's not within the provision of the Human Rights Commission.
I think that's something we also ought to talk to, because it sounds like they want us to be the enforcer of this. We're the enforcer of ban the box of fair chance housing and this kind of thing. So I think somebody has mentioned to me that they were thinking that we would be the enforcer.
There'll be an affidavit that, contractors already sign saying that we don't discriminate against X, Y, and Z. And then we also don't ask about criminal legal history until an offer is made and then a background check is conducted. So it pushes everything to like the last week. So it's really just an affidavit where they sign it and we have to put faith in it. I think, though, it helps to demonstrate our values as a city, so that's important.
It does. But it also will help if we are able to help promote it. if we
Yeah.
educate people.
That is something
And
that
this
the office-
group did a very good job of education, talking about how it impacted recidivism, for example.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'd like, right now, my guess is purchasing isn't sold and isn't going to push it the way we would.
No, I think that they're okay with it. What their advice has been is that there will be a letter in the RFP packet, I
Yeah.
believe, that is just going to simply explain that these are the new standards. And what Michelle Landis asked, in addition, is there any other ways that we, as a commission, will promote this new standard?
Yeah.
So that's something that we should probably talk about, just
should.
so I have all the information before I go to council.
Are we amending our flyer to include that? Our you know, the human rights?
Once it's done, absolutely.
And the same thing, because I think we amended it for trespass, right? No? It's not amended?
No, that's not,
Okay.
it's not trespassing
Yeah.
on there. But
Okay,
there-
so-
and we amended it at one point, but I think they may not have, I'm not sure how up to date it is, the flyer.
So, back to my original question, will our flyer reflect this new requirement? And if not, then it should.
Yes.
And then this speaks to, I keep bringing this up, that we should do public service announcements through CTN, and we should do and I started this back in the summer, and I got no takers. So I'm going to bring it up again. So maybe this would be an ideal time for us to pursue that, where we educate, we have, I don't know what form it would take, but we are at least informing the public about the things that we have responsibility for ensuring compliance. And ideally, we can do it in a couple of ways. I've reached out to and received approval from, I can't think of her name right now, but they're waiting on us to come to them through CTN so that we can do the public service announcement, and we can do ideally maybe an interview or more educational than an interview kind of setting. And then I'm a little fuzzy on the specifics you need to ban the box. So my understanding, and this comes from EEOC, and I don't know that it is or isn't in the language that we currently have relative to ban the box, but the prohibition of employers in asking about that is that an offer has to be made and accepted before the employer can then move forward with notifying the individual of, that they will do a background check. So it's not just asking, you know what I mean? It's not just making an offer. If the offer isn't accepted, I know that that's EEOC's standpoint, that you cannot then move forward with notification of a background check. It might be minor, but it is significant.
Yeah, it's not.
We had this discussion with
Right.
Michelle Landis, and the language was changed a little bit in response to that concern.
Okay.
It doesn't actually state that as a requirement, but it certainly doesn't encourage the asking of those questions early in the process.
Right, and unless an offer is made.
Doesn't say that
it
as a
doesn't say that.
requirement.
Okay.
But you should look at the language.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And that's why I'm bringing it up, because
Yeah.
it was conspicuously absent.
Right.
And I know for a fact that that is a mandate that EEOC enforces. So our language it stops short of that.
Is it a mandate or a best practices kind
No,
of thing?
EEOC has that in their language that says an offer has been made and accepted. Then the employer can state, okay, here are the procedures that govern to move forward in the
Conditional.
all offers are conditional, predicated on the outcome of or the results of the background check. Yes, right. But EEOC is very explicit about offer made and accepted, because the potential is there that an offer could be made and not accepted, in which case then the employer cannot move forward with that. Right? It's only, it seems minor, but trust me, it is very impactful. So I want to make sure that that's clearly communicated and understood, even though our language doesn't go into that detail.
You've spent an awful lot of time vetting a lot of people, interviewing them. You make a decision, and often people, when make a decision, they tell the other people that the job is filled, and then you find out that you can't hire the person sometimes.
I guess it depends. You all know that I'm in human resources. I make offers all day long. And so consistent with the interview and the paperwork that we ask individuals to complete, we state, here are our procedures. We want you to consent to the background check. You are being made this offer. It is predicated on the results of the background check. Conviction does not preclude you from employment. It is on a case-by-case basis. So, yeah. And then, of course, it depends on the position.
Yeah.
So I'll illustrate that. We made an offer to a salaried exec team person, consented to the background check, accepted it, gave them the offer letter. 2 days later, they declined. But the background check was already back, and they had already consented to that.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's a good question, and I raised that concern. It isn't in the language that's being proposed
Yeah, I know.
specifically. This is still a step forward, though.
Okay. Oh, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
but it doesn't go quite as far as you're asking
Right.
for. And I mean, I see our role as basically, I mean, hopefully the city would communicate to the contractors, and somehow the contractors would have to, because those employees are not necessarily in Ann Arbor, they could be anywhere. So somehow those employees need to know that the employers, our contractors, have to follow this. And then if they do know and the employer is not following that, they file a complaint with us. That's how I understand our role.
And if the employees, I don't think that is our role, actually. And that's what's a little confusing for me, because how are we going to regulate on the practices of an employer?
Well, if it's in the non-discrimination
There's an
ordinance,
ordinance, yeah, that's,
then theoretically, any violation of that should come to us, I think.
Yeah.
And the advantage of it being on the flyer is that people see the flyer. And obviously, most of the people who see the flyer are employees.
Oh, right.
Assuming
Right, because
the
it
flyer
gets-
is actually there.
Yeah.
And an employer can say, I interviewed for that job, and I was asked the first day, for example. And they could come to us and complain.
Yeah, we would be like the regulatory enforcement
Yeah, I
aspect.
think so.
Because it would, the city, to be able to check every employer, do any enforcement, would cost a lot of
Mostly no.
resources. So it's just us, and you're right, we would do it in that way.
But there was some concern, though, about some other city policy or procedure that you needed to look at. You sent an email, which is why it was delayed, but I didn't quite understand what that was.
remember right now.
Okay, that's all right.
But I think that this demonstrates that we need a little bit more time.
Yeah,
little bit
okay,
more time,
that's
yeah.
fine. Okay.
But it's good that it's come,
Yeah.
I'm very excited about it, and I sent everybody the students' description of it, and I hope somebody reads it. I didn't invite them. I invited instead two groups about unarmed response, because it was so interesting that I had questions, and I wanted them here to talk about it. And so much is happening around the city, and it's just such a hot topic for us. But we could have this group too if you're interested.
quick question or comment. Just for clarification, is the purchasing department going to make this a part of the packet that
Yes.
they give? Okay.
Yeah,
Yes,
they are going to do that.
Okay.
And I've talked to Milton, and he said this doesn't have to come in front of admin committee until we approve it, and then they'll figure out details of enforcement or implementation, I guess.
It's implementation. Yeah, I think that's where we're going to get the most bang
Yeah.
from it, is how it's implemented.
A memo did go to council about how this is not in violation of the preemption of state law. You know, we're preempted by state law that we can't tell businesses unless their business is engaging in a, potential contract with us. So hypothetically, a business could ask every one of their employers about their criminal legal history at any point, but if they are about to contract one employer out to us, With those, they couldn't. It's complex, but we should talk about it more.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
That's
Yep.
interesting. And it could be very impactful.
I think, by the way, Target and I believe Kohl's have long had this process.
Oh,
in
good.
place.
Sure, yeah, I think that's true.
Oh, good. Aisha, do you want to talk now about what you're thinking about proposing?
Yeah, it's still in the works between Councilmember Briggs and Song and myself. And, at this point, all of our state representatives in Ann Arbor have signed a letter supporting a ceasefire, and our higher elected officials have as well. And it's just really going to be uplifting those statements, and then also have a local focus on condemning Islamophobia and anti-Semitism here in our community and making sure people feel safe. I've been on the phone nonstop for days with people in both community, but mostly people who are on the pro-Palestinian side. That's just who have been contacting me. And people want us to say something, especially with, I think, the university's response right now not being as adequate as the public would like. They're coming to us and they're asking City Hall to say something.
Yeah. Say something to whom?
To the community through a resolution. And, we want to engage people also in the Jewish community in reading this over as well. That's what we hope to do.
Mm-hmm.
Lynn, do you want to say anything? Or?
Can you speak any more to that? Because I imagine some people may have concerns about, making sure that condemns anti-Semitism
Right.
and all that kind of thing. Yeah.
And what happened with Hamas
Yes.
and asking for the release of hostages and, even saying there is a right for Israel to defend itself. But we believe the strategy that's happening now is not the right one, right? And so I want both, the council members involved to all get on the same page about what we want, and then we will approach people in both communities. Hopefully, we don't have a lot of time.
Right.
But we also think that, we need to take action because of the amount of people in the community that have reached out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll just add that I'm really reticent in going beyond our purview, beyond our charter and our roles as city council members and having a statement on international, geopolitical affairs. But I think there was a New York Times article that Leslie had already read. I don't know if some of you have read on why organizers have been approaching municipalities on this issue, knowing the limitations of our power and our work and our budgets. It was really the last line in the article where a council member said, cities have public comments. It's where constituents can feel like they have a voice. And it's just frustration with government. I mean, we're supposed to be here to restore faith in government. That's why I always try to give really specific examples of what we try to do. Like we say we believe in something and we actually do it. Right? And if this resolution is really affirming what's already been done, which is what Congresswoman Dingell had put out a statement on, then I'm more comfortable with it. But I just want to say that we don't have this internal capacity to even I do worry what the message is to city staff. We are now entering this world of international politics. Meanwhile, we do have the work of the city to continue.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that, in what we direct city staff to do, it'll really be, and our city officials to do, it really has to be focused on local impact.
Right.
On the civil rights infringements and people feeling like they could be, that they are being, I can tell you personally, living through post 9/11 and this, I am extremely scared for my kids. There's just a lot of assumptions that are made, and I'm sure the Jewish community is afraid too. So I think staying with that local kind of focused impact, that is important.
Yeah.
That is important.
And affirming that folks should be able to come here. For us to hear these stories where families are afraid to put menorahs in their windows,
Yeah.
Yes.
right? And children being harassed in schools. I don't know what the schools are doing, but, this is a conversation we should have with schools in some way too, where people should feel free to find remedies, if they feel unsafe, to call the police, if they're being harassed, to come here.
Yeah.
Whatever happens in schools, hopefully there's a path for a remedy there with parents and children. I don't know how much of a remedy this resolution will be, because I don't think the region is really waiting for us to weigh in.
Right.
But it's really not about that, right? I think what Aisha has been trying to tell folks, it's reflecting the mutual hurt that we're seeing in community and
That we're
affirming what
hearing
folks who actually influence the president and Congress have been saying.
Actually, one thing that struck me in the public comment today is that several people mentioned what sounded like violations of our non-discrimination ordinance here in Ann Arbor. But as far as I know, we didn't receive any complaints under the NPO. And so I think one piece of the resolution, right, is people, right, why aren't people coming forward with these? And part of that, I think, is that, like you said, they've lost faith in local government. They don't think that they've been heard. And so to me, part of a resolution is also being in right relationship with those folks in our community who are experiencing those things, but have not felt able to bring it forward. And so, you heard someone acknowledge today, however indirect, we know that a resolution is not going to solve, intractable world geopolitical problems that have been going on for decades. That's not the intention. But the local impact of it, how does it affect the people within our community who are experiencing anti-Semitism and experiencing Islamophobia and experiencing anti-Arab hate? That, I think, is the intended audience more than the Prime Minister of Israel. Right? It's how are we speaking to our neighbors, and so that we're hearing and doing whatever we can, however slight that may be.
Yeah.
I agree that that's a very important thing, whether it goes, I don't know if it belongs in that resolution, if there should be another resolution.
We're trying to incorporate this,
Are you?
focusing on the local impact and just being better neighbors, and calling out, discrimination that's happening on both sides. That's going to be part of this. I think one thing that you spoke to that could be like an actual item is HRC being in the resolution, HRC developing our relationships with communities that are marginalized, like Jewish people, like Arab people, so that we know and we develop a rapport with them and they come to us, because we're hearing that all these incidences are happening and HRC is not a body that is hearing enough, and we have to ask ourselves why.
Are you suggesting we go specifically to the Arab communities and the Jewish communities and saying we're here? Maybe, I don't know, maybe are we talking to them?
We do that with ICPOC, with the Police Oversight Commission. We go to Peace Neighborhood, we go to, within community to say if you have complaints about police, this is who we are.
We have in the past.
We
just
have in
not-
the past.
Just not recently.
Yes. And I don't,
You can come to Monday's meeting. Apparently we have a lot of room.
Yeah. We have, but yeah, whatever that targeted whatever that outreach strategy may be as a body, I think something in the resolution should speak to it. Whether it's us, going to places of worship, community centers, whatever, we have a responsibility to show up. And, it's what Pam's been talking about for a long time. Let's get ourselves on TV. I think let's also just get ourselves boots on the ground, like in the places where people exist.
yeah, well, there's certainly a need for it. There's an awful lot of pain out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of pain.
And I think just knowing that we're here, and people still don't know we're here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and also just clarifying, like this isn't therapy, like local government isn't therapy, and that's not to make things trivial, but like the things that we do should be specific, you know, like what we write and how we reflect and what we can do. It's not to narrow the ask. It's just so that it can be realistically addressed, you know. So, So we'll have to thread a very strange needle on this.
Yeah.
And I think going along with that, I know we've talked quite a bit about just like community outreach and like strategy on that in the first place. So I think that when we have that strategic planning meeting, that will be the ideal time to see how we can best do this work in a very intentional and effective way. And then hopefully we can build in different avenues to be more proactive as well, as opposed to having like a reactive approach too. But yeah, there's never like a right time necessarily. But if we can
things are coming
find
together
ways,
where maybe it is a right time.
yeah.
If we have a strategic planning, and that's on the agenda too. I'm not following the order, but everything is coming together in some ways. If we have a strategic planning committee, I'm thinking March now. I'm thinking March because I know Keita's not going to be here because we have this instead and we're a little behind. But also, if we do have a working group or two to talk about this, those people can come to the strategic planning meeting and we can make some interesting decisions. That's going to could be helpful. And so, are there people who want to do that? Is that a possibility? I sort of inferred that we would. I would like to, because we have to act on. We have to at least talk about this, and decide what we want how can we be effective given this war and given the number of people who are affected by it, and given that that's what we're supposed to, discrimination and
Leslie, quick question, and this is more to Aisha and Lynn. Is there a draft that you're proposing for the resolution, or is it still like a work in progress, or is there something that you have that we can either look at and maybe have input?
You know, there is kind of a work in progress, but from my discussions with the other co-sponsors, we want to share it when it's more close to being done, which we hope to do tomorrow. And it will echo a lot of what our higher elected officials have already released and stated. It won't go much beyond, that, besides, additional local impact and what bodies like us could do.
And this would be something you would submit to City Council to get approved. You don't really need us.
I mean, if this body, we're not able to vote electronically, I don't believe. So
No, we aren't, but we could meet as work groups. We could get it down to where,
They're going to do this soon. They're going to do this like Monday.
in the next
Yeah.
few days. Judah, do you want to?
I was just going to, I wish you all the best in drafting such a tricky
Yes, it's tricky.
resolution. I mean, my gut feeling is we're on the side of let's stay out of geopolitics, but I appreciate the pain and that we all feel in the community, and doing something without creating more harm than good, because that's, and then they'll be accused of both sides of them and all that.
And you don't want to
I'm
split people.
And I'm mostly concerned how we can be most effective, which is in addressing actual complaints, and if you could include a shout out to the HRC that handles complaints, violations of the discrimination ordinance, that would be something that we actually could be more effective. I'm concerned that we've been hearing about some of these things for the first time, as Sarah mentioned, and,
They don't come to us.
that would be better if we were hearing about it
Yeah.
directly from the complainants. And so if people are going to read this thing, if nothing else, they'll be alerted to the existence of an anti-discrimination ordinance and a process that they can pursue for their local ills, the effect it will have on geopolitics, is
There's
symbolic,
none.
I'm afraid, but I understand why people feel that they need to go to their local places and says, because that's where they can be heard, and if you can shout at President Biden all you want and he doesn't hear you.
Yeah.
So that's just my.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, definitely putting explicitly in Human Rights Commission, charged with upholding the non-discrimination, chapter whatever, non-discrimination ordinance.
And state hate crime laws,
I'm sorry,
right? Like
what?
I think this legislature had just strengthened hate crime laws, right?
Yeah, we can mention that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but actually really mentioning this body, what we already can do and what we could do in addition, I think is important. Like, resolved HRC will develop an outreach strategy to, interact with marginalized communities. We can make it more broad, so it could be something that we implement when there are other incidences and issues that come up and people are.
How about say continue to, because we have. been.
Continue to, yeah.
thanks.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah. And, in regards to like some of the, and I know the geopolitical impact will be none, right? I also know that people here are being affected. I mean, growing up with, my brothers and his friends, and his mom worked 2 jobs here in Ann Arbor after his parents had a divorce, and his dad got his PhD from chemistry at U of M, and then he was teaching in Gaza. And now he's stuck there with his siblings.
Oh, boy.
And, he's a neurosurgeon at, it impacts people here.
You're a surgeon without a hospital to operate in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and lots of patients.
His friend is a professor and a neurosurgeon. So this person that I'm talking about, whose family is gone, he's a professor here. So people in this community are losing loved ones, right?
Sure. Are you willing to pass the draft by us? Just for,
Yeah.
no? Huh? No, we won't be able to meet, but you might get
We can review
individual
it
comments that would
individually.
be helpful. And we would be more familiar with it.
And I think if you guys want to provide language on a resolved about the human rights continued work,
Oh, that's a good idea, too.
that would be helpful. And then, yes, I can pass on a draft.
Uh-huh. Okay.
If I can add, I think there's many ways that one could write a ceasefire resolution, quote unquote.
Yes.
And we did not support all of them, but I hope that I can speak for fellow commissioners that we deeply respect their work, Councilwoman Johnson, and knowledge in this area, and ties to the community, all that you've done, and thoughtful in crafting a measure that condemns us and condemns, that addresses the issue comprehensively as well as its local impact. Thank you for that. Given that we won't meet in time, like we can't vote in favor of the resolution here. We're not city council and we can't see the draft language yet, so we can't specifically vote whether or not to support it. But are we able to vote to support that Councilwoman Kazi Edwin brings forward such a resolution for consideration by city council?
I imagine we have the ability to, if I understand what your question is, I think we have the ability to resolve the city council accept the resolution.
I'm not really comfortable doing that until I read the
Oh, of
resolution.
course not. Oh, of course not.
Not that we vote that we support city council accepting the resolution since we haven't seen it.
No, you wouldn't, you'd
But
have to
just
say.
that we support Councilwoman Kazi Edwin in bringing forward a resolution.
Well, you want to make sure you know what the resolution is before you. But we certainly support you trying, I think, and we hope. I mean, I hope certainly that it's not. I worry about the city passing a resolution that divides people more than it brings them together. That's my fear. And the words, as Brandon said so well earlier today when I was talking with him, mean different things to different people, so you've got to be very careful about how you use them.
I think we're assuming that the path is going to be easy between now and Monday. I actually haven't seen it either. But, I've been assured that it falls closely with Congresswoman Dingell's statement. That hasn't made everyone happy, but it's on the record, and it's actually a much more significant thing than we could have ever said. So I think, Commissioner Heitzmeyer, are you asking for a vote just affirming the ordinance in this discussion? Or, I don't know if you really need a vote for that. I'm not really sure what you're at, what kind of vote you're looking for, because I haven't seen the draft and we're still.
That we're, not to support, not a vote in support of a specific draft, but just a vote that we support this being added to the agenda on Monday for discussion.
So it's supporting the process, not the product.
Correct. Yes, because we can't support the product, we haven't seen it. But just based on what we've heard today, that we support that Councilwoman Ghazi Edwin deserves to be able to bring something forward for discussion, regardless of how the council members eventually vote on it.
Well, to some extent, we did it today in the meeting. And that you talked about it in the meeting, and I appreciate that. It doesn't say we support it doesn't, it says we want to do something. It says we care. Now the next step is what's in it.
I really hope you can come up with something good, and I have great
Yes.
confidence in you, but I'm not inclined to support such a motion.
It's too big.
Council to come up with the thing that they come up with, and hope it's a good one.
They're trying.
So even a vote in support of just that this be discussed.
But it's what be discussed. So it's, that, I think it could easily be misconstrued, and I think it's splitting hairs a little bit in a way that I think we should just wait and see. But I see what you're trying to do, but I think I'm not really comfortable with it either.
It will be in the minutes, is that true? I think the fact that we talked about it will be in the minutes.
I'm sorry. We're talking about sorry, I hope I'm being clear. That it's, my understanding is that your resolution is not yet on the agenda for the council meeting on Monday. So I am saying, can we express support that it be added to the agenda for discussion on Monday?
Oh.
Like you're making a motion that there be a vote.
Yes.
About whether you just all say we support this being discussed as an agenda item.
Correct. But this is clearly an item of local interest and concern, and thus deserves to be on city council's agenda for Monday.
Put this up, if there's a second, right? That's.
Well, so are you making a motion, a formal motion? Is there a second? I don't hear one. So I suspect this isn't going to fly.
Well, do you want to repeat it again, Sarah?
Yes. Given the local interest and concern, we heard today about how a ceasefire resolution could impact local Ann Arbor residents, as well as our own work as the HRC in making sure that residents feel comfortable bringing forward instances of anti-Semitism, anti-Arab hate, and Islamophobia that they are experiencing at this time. I would like the HRC to vote to support that council Councilwoman Ghazi Edwards' resolution be added to the agenda for City Council on Monday for discussion. We're not supporting yes or no in favor of her resolution, just that it has time on the agenda to be presented to City Council and discussed.
Do you want time on Monday, even? I hear it's not
When I-
even drafted yet.
Well,
So-
I mean, it's in process. When it comes forward, I'll be given time as well
Yes.
with everyone else to discuss it. So, yes, I want time, if that's what you're asking.
On Monday?
Yeah,
Oh,
yep.
did you ask for time?
What, I'm sorry, I'm getting confused.
I'm kind of, we don't usually do something, this is a,
Develop this and bring it forward for discussion.
Right, yeah.
Yes,
I mean, it would be helpful if
for City Council to know that HRC thinks
they
that
think this is a relevant enough issue and they've heard from enough community members that it should be discussed.
I just think it should be given time for fair discussion.
I think it's hard to say yes or no to that because you don't know what is in the, and talking about it and getting concerned about it before it's there might make it less likely to pass when they finally read it and say, yes, that this does make sense. So I'm a little wondering about the value of such a, I don't know, we've never made that kind of a resolution. It's awfully general.
I mean, the minutes of this meeting will be included.
That's right, the
right?
minutes will be, that's what I'm saying, the minutes
Yeah.
will be included, so they will say that,
But if
that
Sarah's
won't come on
asking
Monday.
for consideration for, like, specifically saying that, and then Aisha's also saying this would be helpful to her to have a vote, I mean, you've made a motion, so, and then if someone seconds it, and then there's discussion, and then there's a vote, right? So, is there clarity on the motion?
Is there clarity on the motion? So can you say it again? So the motion is that we vote to support or not support that City Council add Councilwoman Ghazi Edwin's resolution to their agenda to discuss. That it deserves to have time for discussion.
Okay, let me,
Again, we don't support yes or no the resolution itself because we haven't seen it, but just given what we heard today about how important this is to Ann Arbor residents, as well as our knowledge of Councilwoman Ghazi Edwin's ethos and approach to this resolution, and with great integrity, that we think it should be given time to be discussed.
Is there a second?
I'm still concerned about having it discussed without a, so
Is there a second?
I don't hear a second, huh?
Second, I think it needs to have further discussion,
A second?
just to help with clarification, so that we can have a final decision of yes or no, if this will happen or not. So,
It's not for us.
yeah, I know, just like if,
We're
it'll be voted on and
resolving that city council will decide.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So you seconded it?
yeah.
Hmm.
So,
Now you get to discuss. This is like mini city council. This is like city council preview. Yeah. This is a preview of Monday.
Can you ask the question to the
Because we don't actually get to vote, so Aisha and I have no voting on this.
You have no voting on what?
On here, on the
Oh, no, you
motion on the
don't.
table.
You don't.
If you have one, don't you get time for it because you're city council?
Yes.
You already get time for it?
Yes, we already get
Okay.
time for it.
Okay.
I mean, I think if this motion passes, there could be a whereas clause, like whereas the Human Rights Commission has heard from enough community members to know that this is a significant issue and believes it needs to be discussed or addressed. But I want to change the motion also. You guys have to discuss it and decide.
When we make resolution generally, we build a narrative and we have resolve, for these 5 reasons, therefore, we want something. We don't have any of that, and I don't even have it in my mind how I would write it.
I can write it.
You could write it. You should have, well, you couldn't have written it before. One of the problems is, am I not right in thinking that the agenda has to be finalized by Friday?
Yeah. It has to be finalized by Friday, right, Kennedy?
I think our agenda session is actually tomorrow
Tomorrow.
For city council?
for city council's agenda. We meet as.
Yeah, I think the
as a
final one
city
is.
Tomorrow.
But it's published on Friday.
It's
It's
published
published
on Fridays, but the discussion for the
Okay.
agenda is tomorrow. So it would need to come tomorrow
By 5.
by 5, and then the agenda will get published on Friday. So you have to submit it tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what I was.
That's what you're planning?
Yep, that's
Okay.
what we're planning.
So I guess I have a procedural question for Aisha. Then, whether or not this matter gets discussed at a city council member depends on what?
Just getting it in on time
Right.
and getting enough sponsors. So if we don't get it in tomorrow by 5, then I think we can submit it Friday, but it would need 3 co-sponsors.
So a vote here would have no impact on whether it gets heard or discussed at your meeting?
That's true. Yeah, that is true.
Okay.
But I think-
Given that, and that we haven't seen the resolution, I'd be inclined to just let you do your process and,
Yeah.
um,
I'm afraid I agree. I think this is such a hot topic that they have to see something more tangible before. I don't think having a preview vote is a helpful thing at this
We're
point.
not preview voting on it, though. We're just saying that we support it being discussed. We're not supporting the measure, or not yes or no, just based on what we know of Aisha and her efforts, that we think we support her bringing it forward and having time for discussion.
What could
I
I
get-
suggest, huh?
I think the clarifying point is that if you submit it on time and everything, you'll automatically have time, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's the clarifying point of just, do we need to support that time that's already going to be given or not and everything? So I guess like with the motion and everything, like
Yeah, okay.
it's,
So can you clarify for us if a vote on this would be helpful for you in any way?
I think you'd have to change the motion,
Okay.
I think that we've already discussed and agreed that the Human Rights Commission should be mentioned in regards to resolved and it taking more actionable steps to reach out to both communities. If the motion was whether you all would support be included as a whereas the Human Rights Commission has heard complaints from the community and knows this is a significant issue, that should be discussed.
Well,
If that would help, I think.
if that is the one, what we're voting on.
so, yeah, I would make that motion that
But doesn't it
if
depend
you
what
present
the,
a resolution to city council, that the HRC be included and our services and the anti-discrimination ordinance be mentioned as a resource available to the community. So,
And that would be one part of it.
yeah, no, that wouldn't be the whole thing, but
Right.
a
Right.
whereas clause included in any resolution that you
Yeah.
might do. That's what I would
Yes.
move that we support.
I think you've got support that people have heard the pain and know that something has to happen.
So that could be it. Whereas the Human Rights Commission has heard the pain of the community and believes that something should happen in the sense that it should be discussed at council.
I don't know.
I think that's up to council,
That-
but I
that's-
think
yeah,
that if you're going to
that's-
have a resolution, that it should, my motion is different, I guess, than Sarah's.
Yes.
Is that if you're going to submit a resolution, that HRC and its services and the anti-discrimination ordinance be referenced
Yeah.
and in any resolution.
Yeah, and that I think we agreed upon and didn't need a motion for, but I'm not
Okay.
entirely sure.
So, yeah, I guess I don't know that we need a motion, so I'm withdrawing my motion.
Okay, okay.
Okay, it gets confusing.
So point of clarification, HRC will be mentioned as agreed in the resolution that you are writing in regards to condemning expressions of hate and discrimination aimed at groups. Am I hitting it right? Am I not?
Well, except I'm withdrawing the motion. We had
Right.
discussion tonight, and it sounds like that is going
Right,
to be
that was
part of
agreed.
it, and so I
Okay.
don't think we need to have a motion
No.
or a
Yeah.
resolution. So
That wasn't the motion. The motion was like,
Right, I just wanted to make it that was agreed here.
that what was agreed upon here is that HRC will be mentioned.
Correct,
As
yeah.
being part of the strategy to outreach to
Yes.
communities, that the complaint process will be mentioned and our upholding of the NDO.
Okay.
Yeah.
That we've agreed upon.
Okay.
Um,
And Judy, you
what
withdrew your
Sarah's,
motion.
yeah, we didn't need a motion. It was agreed upon in discussion.
Right.
Sarah's making a motion, if you were making this motion, that HRC also be mentioned in the resolution, for example, in a whereas, as a whereas clause, that they've heard from the community and believe that this issue should be discussed, or something to that effect. That was my understanding of what's being discussed.
Are you okay, are you comfortable with that?
Or am I misinterpreting?
No.
Sarah?
Well, my initial thought was that I had thought that your ability to put this on the agenda was not guaranteed, and that our support of it being on the agenda would be helpful for your advocating to get it on the agenda. So, but
We'll
you're
be
saying
able,
that's not true.
yeah, no, we'll be able to get it on the
Okay.
agendas if we just get it in on time.
Is there another way that you feel that the HRC could potentially support this work?
I think the way that we've, this discussion tonight is helpful. And I understand that people want to see it first. I get it. So I think this is support, so.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Glad we could support it. Oh, it's 9:30. We're late. I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's fine.
We must be having a lot of fun.
I move that we adjourn and put any matters that we haven't
Yes.
yet reached over to the next meeting.
I think that makes a good.
Second.
Okay, so, point of clarification, I'm so sorry, y'all. So we are tabling the discussion of police chief search. There was a discussion by Councilmember Song and Councilmember Gazia for facial recognition and ban the box.
Right.
And then we are also tabling the social work partnership, building an HRC reference library, commissioner open position update, complaints, planning for HRC strategic planning efforts, as well as trespass follow-up.
Right.
Okay, so those items will be tabled for January's meeting.
I think that's true.
I just got to make sure I document it.
Thank you so much for keeping us sound.
I'm trying.
Okay, so in January, we are going to have two presentations that are going to take about, they might take an hour together, or a little bit less. You might want to read the presentations. I sent them to you. I'll send them to you again. And I'll send you also the ones from the other class, so that you have that to look forward to. Other than that, I think we can have a motion to adjourn. Somebody want to make it?
I did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Did we have a second? All in favor? Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
So, did you enjoy Robert's rules?